Behind the Line, episode 17. I am your host, KC. Follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Hit the like and subscribe button if you're listening on YouTube. I'm going to jump right into the good, the bad, and the ugly today. Got a busy week coming up for the podcast. Going to do my NFL midseason review on either Friday or Saturday morning. Going to discuss the current teams that are in the playoffs that I'm concerned about. Teams that I don't think will make the playoffs that are in the hunt right now. And basically talk about how the last half of the season I think will shake out. So let's go ahead and get to the good, the bad, and the ugly from the past weekend, starting with the good. We're going to open up with college football this week. The college football pollsters have woken up and seen the light. They finally recognized what we've been saying on this podcast the last few weeks. New polls were released on Sunday morning. And LSU is ranked number 1 in the country. Jumped over Alabama and claimed the number 1 spot, and rightfully so. I'm sure there are a lot of Alabama fans out there that are upset about this. I saw some on Twitter over the weekend talking about the fact that Alabama hasn't lost a game. How can we drop in the polls if we didn't lose a game? I'll explain this in terms that even the most simple redneck can understand. Your fucking schedule is an embarrassment. When you haven't played a quality opponent all year, and it's fucking late October, not one game this season has Alabama played a worthy opponent. Listen to this trash of a schedule. Opened against Duke, New Mexico State, South Carolina, Southern Miss, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Arkansas. Best team they've played in that group of trash is Texas A&M. And they fucking suck. LSU, on the other hand, they played Texas on the road, Florida, Auburn. 3 quality opponents in 8 games. Still not what I would call a great schedule, but it's a much tougher schedule than Alabama's had. Bama will be the 4th ranked opponent that LSU plays this season when they play in a couple of weeks. This needed to happen. I'm not a Bama hater. I know it seems like I am because I've been complaining about them all season. I've got a lot of respect for Nick Saban. However, I am so aggravated that every year they walk through the regular season and they play these bullshit-ass teams and they walk right into the national championship. We saw what happened last year when they did this. They got their ass kicked by Clemson. The polls need to start punishing these teams that play weak schedules. It seems to me that Nick Saban, the past several years, has been running away from real opponents. Let's go out and pay New Mexico State $1 million so we can kick their ass at home and get a W on the schedule. We can go undefeated through the regular season. They'll have to put us into the playoffs. No, not anymore. Not in my opinion. If you have a schedule like Alabama has, where you play only 2 real teams all year in LSU and Auburn, then it shouldn't be an automatic playoff berth for going undefeated, because you haven't accomplished anything. November 23rd, the week before Alabama plays Auburn, they play WCU. I didn't even know who the fuck that was. I had to go Google them to find out that it was Western Carolina, an FCS team. The so-called best team in the country is playing an FCS team in 2019. Inexcusable. That is why you're not ranked number 1 anymore, and LSU is. I've never understood why these college teams schedule these games years in advance. I saw over the weekend that Michigan and Notre Dame have agreed to play each other in 2033 and 2034. Why? Why are they scheduling games 15 fucking years in advance? It makes no sense. The people scheduling the games probably won't even be alive when these games are played. Hopefully this will encourage Alabama and some of these other teams to beef up their schedules. Because it's not only Alabama that plays weak schedules, but they're the main culprit this year anyway. I'm glad that the polls got it right. LSU is the best team in the country. Like I said a couple of weeks ago, I think they beat Alabama by 10 plus points. Alabama doesn't have the defense that Auburn has. I don't think the Bama defense will be able to stop Joe Burrow. All right, next up. How fucking good are my New Orleans Saints? I will gladly admit that I was wrong last week about Drew Brees rushing back from his injury and starting this game against Arizona. Obviously, he knows his body better than I do. I'm no expert. Brees was a surgeon Sunday afternoon. Completed 79% of his passes. Showed absolutely no rust. He didn't look like a guy that had just sat on the bench for 5 weeks. 373 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 really bad interception on an overthrown pass. Really his only bad throw of the game. He was avoiding hits in the pocket. It was the Drew Brees that I'm used to seeing. I was pleasantly surprised. I really was. As good as Drew Brees was, and as strong as this team is offensively, and I've been hearing whispers the past few weeks that the Saints are looking to trade for A.J. Green. You pair A.J. Green with Michael Thomas. You got Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara in the backfield. Jared Cook at tight end. And oh yeah, the jack of all trades and Taysom Hill. Who the fuck are you going to stop? The Saints already have too many weapons for you to stop. You add A.J. Green to this roster, they're unstoppable. But as great as they are offensively, I think the key and the strength of this team is Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, and this defense. For the 5th game in a row, the Saints defense held a team under 300 total yards. Sacked the elusive Kyler Murray twice, but were in his face all afternoon. Arizona was riding a 3-game winning streak coming into New Orleans. Murray had been playing better than we had seen earlier this season. Same with the Arizona defense. The Arizona defense had a good pass rush Sunday. But the Saints completely shut them down. Other than one trick play early in the first quarter, Arizona hardly moved the ball. I thought the turning point in that game happened on the opening drive of the third quarter. Arizona's got the ball on their own 30. It's 4th and 1. They're trailing 4 points. Instead of punting and leaning on your defense that had been playing well up to that point, Cliff Kingsbury decides to go for it and run the ball straight up the middle against one of the better run defenses in the NFL. And of course they were stuffed. The game was over after that decision. Saints scored quickly. All the momentum was on New Orleans' side. Rookie mistake by a rookie head coach. I didn't understand the call. I didn't agree with it. I thought it cost Arizona the game. I'll ask the same question I've been asking the last few weeks. Who in the NFC is going to beat New Orleans? It's not going to be Green Bay. Not Seattle. Already beat them on the road. The Rams? No. 49ers? Let's get to the 49ers. I'm still not 100% sold on this being the best team in the NFC. But I will say that they're better than I thought they were going into last week. They completely dominated a good Carolina Panthers team Sunday afternoon. It was pure fucking destruction. An ass whooping. So I'll give credit where credit is due. Kyle Shanahan has this 49er team playing great football right now. Their defense is real. They were in the backfield all afternoon chasing Kyle Allen. Great front four in San Francisco. Richard Sherman is playing some of his best football in years, since his days in Seattle. So I was wrong about San Francisco. They're good, but they're not the best team in the NFC. I'm still concerned about Jimmy G. I don't think he's looked great this season. 4 games under 200 yards passing. That's not going to get it done against the elite teams. Now, you might argue that he doesn't need to pass much because San Francisco runs the ball so well. And that is a valid point. But what happens when you face a team with a stout run defense? A team that can shut down the run and defend against the pass at the same time. Because that's what the Saints can do. 49ers come to New Orleans in early December. I guarantee you the game plan going in will be to make Jimmy G beat them. I like how San Francisco signed Emmanuel Sanders. I think he's going to help them in the passing game. They got a great tight end in George Kittle. It's all going to come down to Jimmy G. Can he put this team on his back and carry them? He hasn't had to do that yet this season. San Francisco's had a relatively easy schedule the first half of the year, but it's about to get difficult going down the stretch. They got Seattle twice, Green Bay, at Baltimore, at New Orleans. The fans and media are really high on the 49ers right now. The best quarterback this team has faced all year is Jared Goff. And he's been awful for stretches this season. Coming up, they've got Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, Drew Brees. If they come out of that stretch on top, then I'll crown them the best team in the NFC. But until then, the best team in the NFC is the Saints. All right, let's get to the bad from this weekend. I really feel bad for fans of the Auburn Tigers. I understand that Bo Nix is a true freshman, young kid. But if this team had a decent quarterback, they could be the best team in the country. Their defense is that good. They went into the toughest place to play in college football and contained an explosive LSU offense. Going into that game, LSU had scored 35-plus points in every game. They were averaging 50 points a game on the year. Auburn defense held them to 23 at home. The problem, and this has been a problem in Auburn since Nick Marshall left, is at the quarterback position. This defense gets no help from Bo Nix. I cut him some slack earlier in the season, and I still do a little bit, because he's young. But at this point, I expect to see better out of him. This kid's got a strong running game, an elite defense. They just need him to be average, mediocre. And he's not. He's terrible. Completing 43% of your passes at LSU is not going to get it done. Bo Nix has had 3 games this year with completion percentages in the 40s. On passes 5+ yards down the field, he's god-awful. 17 of 61, 28% on his attempts. 5.8 yards per attempt. 3 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. That should tell you all you need to know about Bo Nix. If he was just okay, just mediocre, this team would be undefeated. Should have won that game at Florida. This kid's got a QBR of 59.5. This season's lost for Auburn. They aren't making the playoffs. But Gus Malzahn has got to figure out a way to develop Bo Nix, because I'm not seeing his development 9 weeks into this season. I'm not seeing this guy improve. He's actually getting worse. Speaking of bad quarterbacks, a regular offender in the bad segment, Jameis Winston. For the 3rd time this season, Jameis Winston lost a game for his team almost single-handedly. Happened against the 49ers in Week 1. Happened against Carolina. We saw it again Sunday at Tennessee. Tampa should have won this game. They outplayed the Titans through 4 quarters. Shut down Derrick Henry. Held Ryan Tannehill under 200 yards. The Tampa defense did its job. Offensively, outside of Winston, I thought they executed too. But just like the other 2 games, bad mistakes by Jameis Winston cost his team the game. 3 fumbles, 2 recovered by the Titans, 2 interceptions in the first half. Tennessee scored 14 points off of 2 Winston turnovers. He set Tannehill up deep in Tampa territory each time. You can't come back from that. It's fucking impossible to dig yourself a 14-point hole in this league and come back. Bruce Arians came out after the game in a foul mood for reasons that I'll get to in a little bit. But he came out after the game in defense of Jameis Winston. He said that none of those interceptions were his fault. He basically threw his receivers under the bus with that statement. And maybe he's right, but I don't buy it. The interception late in the 4th quarter, there wasn't a Tampa receiver within 10 yards of where that ball was thrown. It was a misread somewhere. Either Winston or his intended receiver. The reason I don't buy Arians' excuse is because Jameis Winston has been a turnover machine his entire career. I like that his head coach is defending him, but come on. At some point, the responsibility has got to be Winston's and his alone. This team should be 4-3 right now. Instead, they're 2-5. The season's basically over in Tampa Bay. They need to win 7 of their next 9 games to even have a prayer at sniffing the playoffs. Jameis Winston wasn't the only dumbass yesterday. Tennessee coach Mike Vrabel was as well. Titans up 4 points with about 5 minutes to go, 46-yard field goal attempt, and the fucker fakes the field goal. Didn't make it. Was a controversial call by the officials that we'll talk about in just a second. But what the fuck is Mike Vrabel thinking? You have a chance to go up 7 points with under 3 minutes to go, and you fake the field goal. He damn near handed the Bucs the win, and in the process got his field goal kicker knocked the fuck out. I thought it was a stupid play call. I'm going to close out the bad segment this week with the Indianapolis Colts. They squeaked out a win against Denver Sunday at home, and a game that they should have lost. Indianapolis was awful Sunday. That was a horrible, horrible game. I didn't even recognize the team that was on the field. Jacoby Brissett looked like shit. Offense wasn't moving the ball. Adam Vinatieri was botching field goals and extra points like George W. Bush used to botch the English language. I mean, it was that bad. I'm noticing a trend with this Colts team that's got me a bit concerned. This team seems to play to its opponents. They look great on the road at Kansas City. Look great against Houston. Good at Tennessee. And on the other hand, they sucked at home against the Raiders. They looked terrible in that game Sunday against Denver. Didn't look good against the Falcons. If I'm head coach Frank Reich, I would be concerned about my team playing to the level of its opponents. You never know what you're going to get out of this Colts team. They're consistently inconsistent. We'll see if this trend continues because the next 2 games are against the bad Steelers and the eyesore Dolphins. But historically, teams in this league that play to the level of their opponents end up going 8-8. All right, time for the worst of the worst from the weekend. There were several things this weekend that I thought were painful to watch, but I narrowed this down to what I thought was the worst. Matt Nagy and the Chicago Bears have got to do something about this Mitchell Trubisky situation. And by do something, I mean it's time for him to be on the sidelines holding a clipboard. If you looked at his stats alone and didn't watch the game, you'd think that Trubisky had a decent game. But take it from me, somebody who watched. Trubisky was fucking atrocious. Missed wide open receivers. He had a ghost force a fumble. That's the only explanation that I can come up with. Because there wasn't a guy near him that touched the fucking ball. Things were so bad in the first half that Matt Nagy's genius halftime adjustment was to just run the football and take it out of Trubisky's hands. At one point, the Bears had run 9 or 10 straight times. The few times that they did decide to pass, Trubisky showed everyone why it was better just to run the ball. Once again, the Chicago defense came to play. This defense is too good to have an offense that gives them absolutely nothing. To Trubisky's credit, he did set the team up to win the game late in the fourth quarter. Then Eddie Pinheiro missed the fucking easy field goal. Inexcusable, but the Bears deserved to lose that game. Remember Robbie Gould, the kicker that the Bears got rid of? The guy who was one of the best kickers in the NFL? Do you think they fucking missed that guy the past 2 years? At 3-4, the Bears aren't out of the playoff hunt, but Matt Nagy has got to do something to save this season. He cannot keep trotting Trubisky out on the field and expecting different results. We've seen 22 games from this guy. He's shown little to no improvement. This Bears defense has got about a 2 or 3 year window of elite level play like they're playing right now. Defenses tend to age quickly. Just look at the Legion of Boom in Seattle. They had a nice little 2 to 3 year run, then it was all said and done. You have a veteran quarterback in Chase Daniel, but I don't think he's the guy to lead this team into the playoffs. I think the Bears are going to have to trade for a quarterback before the deadline. They need a guy like Teddy Bridgewater, though I highly, highly doubt the Saints are going to let him go. But they might want to look into trading for a Cam Newton. Now, I said last week that I didn't like Chicago trading draft picks for Cam. But at this point, they might be forced to. They've got to do something to get this offense to a point where they can give this Bears defense a rest. One thing I know for certain, if they continue to start Trubisky, they're going to keep getting the same results. This is a frustrated team right now in Chicago. If Trubisky starts the rest of this year, this team could be looking at a 6-10 record. Sam Darnold is another young quarterback who's been dreadful the past couple of weeks. I didn't think it would happen 2 weeks in a row, but it did. He has turned into a turnover machine the past 2 weeks. 7 fucking turnovers in 2 games. You see the results, 2 blowout losses. I'm seeing reports that Jets head coach Adam Gase is pretty much coaching week to week for his job. I'm not big on changing coaches with young developing quarterbacks. I think it sets them back in their development. But Adam Gase is not making a strong case to keep his job in New York. If Gase is fired, this will be Darnold's 3rd coach. However, this Jets team is completely falling apart. Players seem to be on the verge of a revolt, like we saw earlier this year in Miami. Gase is losing the locker room in his first year on the job. Defensive lineman Leonard Williams said that in the locker room post-game that Gase was talking to the team about not quitting on the season. Your head coach is addressing the team, instructing them not to quit on the season in October. That's not a good sign. The Jets signed Gase because he was supposedly an offensive genius. Could have fucking fooled me. I didn't see that in Miami when he was there. This offense is in shambles. Darnold looked worse this year than he did last year under Todd Bowles, who was a defensive specialist. What's more concerning is this team doesn't seem to be together, like as a unit. They don't seem to have each other's backs. After that game Sunday, no one came out and said, we're going to get this turned around. We're going to fix these issues. Instead, the players sounded defeated. Some said they were just tired of losing. I thought after they dominated Dallas that this team was on the verge of turning things around, but that win seems like it was a year ago. It's not like the Jets have lost 2 close games. Getting blown out by New England is one thing, but getting blown out by Gardner Minshew and the fucking Jags is just bad. At this point, if things continue to go this way, I would be surprised if Adam Gase makes it through the season as the Jets head coach. All right, closing out today, I thought about mentioning Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland Browns. Another dismal performance by them Sunday afternoon. But since they've been in the ugly segment just about every week of the season, I decided to give them a pass this week. Mainly because I'm all talked out in regards to Baker Mayfield. I mean, what more can I say that I haven't already said about him? It's just rinse and repeat every week. Instead, I'm going to close the show talking about officiating in the NFL, just for a brief minute. I know I bitched about these officials several times through the 8 weeks that we've been in this season, but it seems every week something egregious happens during a game that alters the outcome. I referenced this earlier when talking about the Bucs-Titans game. The fake field goal by Tennessee in the 4th quarter. The Titans kicker clearly fumbles the ball. I mean, it was clear in live action that he fumbled the ball. The Bucs return it for a touchdown. The fucking officials blow the play dead prematurely, which eliminates the ability for Tampa to challenge the play. Instead of the Bucs taking a 30-27 lead, they remained down by 4 points, lost the game by 4 points. This is a major, major fucking problem. Was this the reason that Tampa lost? No. I gave you plenty of other reasons earlier why they lost. But this terrible call definitely impacted the result of the game. It's inexcusable. These officials have been told repeatedly, over and over and over, on fumbles, you let the play go. Then go to the replay and sort it out. So why call the fucking play dead? It just makes no sense. This has happened a couple of times this year. It happened to the Saints in their game against the Rams. Cam Jordan recovers a fumble, takes it back for a touchdown. Officials fucking blow the play dead early. It would have put New Orleans into the lead going into halftime. Completely changed the outcome of the game. This is what I'm talking about. You can't. Points are at such a premium in this league that to have officials taking points off the board, it should not happen. Players get punished in this league all the time. Coaches get fined for criticizing these same officials. Why aren't they fining officials when they fuck up obvious calls? I guarantee you, you start fining these guys $30,000 when they screw something like this up and have a direct impact on the game, they'll be a lot more conservative with these early whistles on these fumble calls. All right, that's all for today, guys. I'm still feeling a little bit under the weather, so I'm going to cut it short. I'll be back Friday morning. Follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Hit the like and subscribe button. Make sure to leave a comment in the section below. I'll see you on Friday morning.